She was new. And I went to her and I was like, hey, I think I might have an infection. I was referring to an STD. And she was like, okay, no problem. We'll test you. And she was like, no, it all came back negative. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. And then on campus, they, of course, give STD tests for incentives. And so I went because I think you should go regularly. And I find out that I did have a STD, the specific one I asked her about. And so I went back to her and I called and she was like, oh, well, the test that I ran was for yeast infections. And I was like, okay, but why would you run a yeast infection test when I said that I thought it was this? And I started cramping really bad. So I went to the ER here. And when I went, they're like, okay, you do have this. They're like, but you also have pelvic inflammatory disease.
I was riding around in the car with my mom and all of a sudden my side started to really hurt. And I assumed it was like period cramps or something. And then it just progressively got worse and worse. And they didn't know what it was. So they basically immediately did the IV with morphine in it because of how much pain I was in. And then they went and did a few ultrasounds. So then we went back to the ER. And this time they just gave me Tylenol instead of anything else. This lady came back in and I remember her literally like shrugging her shoulders and being like, well, it's a mystery. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go home with this Tylenol. So then I went to my primary care doctor like a week later. And the first thing she said was like, oh, did they give you a CT at the hospital? We were like, no. And she's like, well, that's what you needed. And she's a Black woman. My primary care doctor was a Black woman. So she issued the CT. And then we found out that I actually like had a kidney stone.
So I got IUD placed my freshman year of college. They always tell you, check your strings to make sure it's in the right place. And I checked my strings and I could feel the actual IUD. And so I was like, I have to go to the emergency room so this does not puncture my uterus. I had to go to 2 different ERs. I went to the first one and they were like, well, we don't really do that down here. And I didn't even know how to respond. So I just went to another one. And they pretty much said the same thing. They were like, well, we don't pull those out down here. He gave me some ibuprofen and it's like, okay, I guess like I really just didn't know what to say and I just left. I ended up pulling it out myself, for one because it was hurting and 2 because I was scared because it's like I don't want this thing to puncture me while I'm in the city that I don't know. It was actually kind of scary because it's like no one's taking this thing seriously. But I have to be the angry, loud Black woman making a scene for you to do something. And sometimes I used to want to avoid that, but it's like when it comes down to my health, I'd rather you be uncomfortable and me not be dead. You grow up thinking that there's a set of people who are supposed to protect you, whether that's like the police or your doctor protecting you from like physical bodily harm. Because it's like, well, if I can't depend on this person, this type of person, then how am I supposed to depend on any other doctors or trust any doctors?
So it never really occurred to me like that a doctor wouldn't do their job. Doctors are supposed to save our lives and they're supposed to help us and, keep us healthy and make us feel better. It's about why our lives are so expendable in this country.